Our next speaker is Colonel David Robinson. He is the Acting Military Director and Army Service Lead of the Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, small x, DIUx. And he is going to talk on DIUx and the innovation ecosystem, harnessing commercial technology for warfighter imperatives. Over to Colonel Robinson.
Thank you, sir. You can go to the next slide, or I guess I can. So, like he said, with DIUx, we're a small organization, about 60 people. Our headquarters is in Silicon Valley in Mountain View, right next to Google. We've got a small location in Austin, Texas, right downtown, co-located with a tech startup called Capital Factory, right in downtown Austin. And then we've got an office, a larger office in Boston, in Cambridge, which gives us proximity to not only technical innovation in the venture capital community, but also the academic community that is active there. So we have relationships with Harvard, Tufts, MIT grad students, and we bring them into special projects at times while they're military officers completing their education. So I myself am in Washington, D.C. We have a small office in the Pentagon. There is a lot of venture capital work happening in Washington, D.C. as well. But what you'll see is a commonality on our co-locating at or near places where the venture capital community is strong. And that's by design, because we look to the VC model to help us prove out technologies. It's a very sophisticated model. When we have an opportunity to come our way, our partners in the VC community can help us vet those. So we got, I suppose, a terrible problem on our hands here. This is, if you were to look at the IRAD spending, the R&D spending of the entire military industrial base there in the blue bars in aggregate, and its trend from 2016 to 2017, what you're seeing is actually a decrease. And any of those other, you can pick the Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, any one of them actually eclipsed the largest 8 defense industrial base individual participants, or in aggregate, I should say, and it's increasing. So you might look at that and it looks kind of strange, but at DIUx we looked at that as a tremendous opportunity, because it allows us to get to that gap, that yellow, the opportunity that free enterprise provides when they're pursuing a business model and they're making investments. So what you've got on the bottom in the blue there is sort of the pace of R&D investment, if you will, through the Cold War era, and then we're kind of on par with commercial industry. Then something significant, when the internet really took off, and GPS and smaller satellites, commercial imagers and others, you really started to see an increase in the opportunity for us to get at investment that was taking place in private enterprise, but to do so for pennies on the dollar. So that essentially is the value proposition of Defense Innovation Unit Experimental. So we're all over the country in terms of the contracts that we've done. So 67 of them to date. We use a model called the Other Transactional Authorities Commercial Solutions Opening, which I'll talk more about in a second here. And I see actually some familiar faces here in the room of companies that we have done contracts with. They are typically non-traditional defense contractors, not traditional defense contractors, though at times the NDAA 18 language actually expanded the ability for traditional defense participants to work in OTA. So, because what we're finding is that the defense industrial base oftentimes are the incumbents in the programs, and so we need to innovate with them, alongside them, and in the current programs. So we've covered almost the entire country. Typically, we'll see 20 or 30 respondents to any given commercial solutions opening that we post. We go through a vetting process. We've got, at the moment, 650 companies that we have engaged with, either directly in response to our commercial solutions openings, or who have presented white papers on the ability to solve a problem that they know or they believe exists in the DoD. So this is something that Director Cardillo mentioned earlier today as an example of how we're kind of going to market with NGA, the DIUx XView 2018 Detection Challenge. So this is using commercial satellite imagery, 1,400 worldview chips, high-resolution data sets, putting them on an open architecture and giving non-traditional participants the ability to sign up and try automated artificial intelligence algorithms on that data set to see how effectively they could pick up with those algorithms we might not otherwise have access to, how effectively those can start to identify military targets. So this is an example of how we're working with the NGA. So we've got 5 categories, 5 portfolios, if you will. We've got our artificial intelligence portfolio. This has been very active. DIUx has been identified by the Congress as a subject matter expert in compiling the AI treasure trove, I suppose, and so we're very active in that, not just for artificial intelligence, but again, for machine learning and then for computer vision, like the XView challenge that's going on. This autonomy and counter unmanned aerial systems. So think of, these are typically aerial drones. You can imagine an aerial drone company. We will buy those at times, take them apart, discover their vulnerabilities, so that we can be sure that if autonomous systems are deployed, small drones to our warfighter, that we understand the cyber vulnerabilities in those and can close down those threats. We also do underwater systems and land-based autonomous systems as well. Human systems, this is looking at the soldier, the airman, the Marine as a weapon system, and trying to understand how to keep them healthier, more in sync with their weapon systems, and more efficient combined force structure. An example of this would be delivering blood using drones to the battlefield so that somebody who's injured forward can be fixed up, patched back up in a more forward location than they might previously have been evac'd to. Space, this is a very active portfolio, and this is probably the most significant GEOINT cross-section that we've got. It is essentially responsive launch. There's so many payloads that are looking for rides of space, especially in LEO orbit, and we've got a couple of contracts with some companies and more all the while on getting responsive launch capabilities for smaller satellites. IT, this covers our information technology and our cyber capabilities. There was a discussion earlier around migrating to the cloud. This is something, as we see our requirements coming in from our customers in the DoD, everybody wants to move to the cloud, be it the unclassified cloud or on up the stack. So we've done some work recently with U.S. Transportation Command to migrate all their data to the cloud so that that data can be seen across the enterprise and can complement one another. So I apologize. I had to, for this open forum, I had to protect the innocent and the guilty, and I removed the actual names of the organizations here. But what you have is along the x-axis there, the kind of technology maturation, think maturity level of the technology, and then government or commercial, whether it's exclusively something built for the government on the y-axis there, or if it's commercially viable or has a potential to be commercially viable. So what we're trying to demonstrate here is that these days when you say innovation, you've said a mouthful, and that there are many participants in the innovation ecosystem. So it's very important for us to remember what we're good at and what others are good at. Kind of in the bottom left, you might think of a lab, right? DARPA, for example. We've actually moved into the OSD's research and engineering organization that includes DARPA, Strategic Capabilities Office, and MDA, and that's by design. They're creating some of the technologies, and we're finding the ones that already exist in the free enterprise, and we're leveraging those or attempting to. So when it comes to the timelines, this is where we really excel. So I'll show you a little bit more about our commercial solutions openings. These are designed for speed. We at times have problem statements given to us, and we don't go through a requirements process. It's 1 or 2 page problem statements. I've seen problem statements given to us by our warfighter customers that are as little as 1 single sentence. And that's enough for non-traditional participants to respond to, or it needs to be, because the more significantly we wrap military specifications around it and acronyms, the fewer free enterprise options we're going to start to get access to. So we're about speed. We'll go into a contractual phase with a non-traditional within 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. We've done it and executed the contract in as little as a month. And the intention is to build a prototype and to determine if that prototype is worthy of scaling to a production level. And that not being the case is okay. So we've scaled many to the production level, but like DARPA, failure is okay. Not every prototype contract that we move into is going to scale to something that the entire department can use. This is just an example. On the top right there is is a satellite, so kind of germane to this conversation here. You know, the planet constellation, I think 190 satellites and counting, the opportunity to be able to see at mid-resolution the entire Earth multiple times a day. This is a capability that we've tapped into, and again, you know, back to the computer vision challenge, that data, that volume of data, and to Director Cardillo's points this morning, if all of that data is going to be AAA'd, if you will, by the end of 2018, the deluge of data is just increasing. So really it kind of leads you to the simple fact that without artificial intelligence, machine learning, and computer vision, there's no way you're going to be able to get through that amount of data with the new participants that are creating imagery data alone. So on the top left, obviously that's Amazon delivering product, but it could easily be an ISIS unit delivering a 40-millimeter grenade to an Army unit in Mosul that's trying to take the city back. And so that exact circumstance has happened, and we help our customers get through that. And likewise, how to use drone technology to our greatest advantage. AR, VR, the ability to move into a more efficient sustainment, condition-based sustainment, and to fix things further forward. So you can imagine in Afghanistan, we've had the luxury of being in large forward operating bases and a logistical infrastructure that is massive. That's not going to be the case if we get into an issue in Eastern Europe, for example. So we have to make really smart logistics and sustainment decisions. Using AI again, we can look at maintenance data from Bradley fighting vehicles. We've done it for E-3 aircraft, C-17s, C-5s. Get the data on the cloud so that it can be examined, and you can make better decisions about where to stage logistical resources and how frequently to fix things. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll simply fix things at a certain particular cadence, regardless of the break-fix tempo of a particular item. So we're able to make much better decisions, which translates into savings of money, but more importantly, perhaps, in any future fight, is more resources forward to be able to take on a near-peer adversary. So this is kind of the DIUx go-to-market. Take the toughest of problems. We'll consider any problem. Again, if it's got a commercial solution or a solution that is commercializable, that's where we get kind of our best effect. Take it to DIUx experts. You know, there are 60 of us. A lot of the folks that we have on the team are former CEOs. We have a feeder from schools like Harvard, Tufts, MIT, Stanford, and we don't need to be the subject matter expert on everything. Again, we use the venture capital community to help us do that tech scouting mission and to get quickly to what might be a legitimate technology or a set of technologies, but then to operate a robust acquisition cycle. I hesitate to even call it acquisition because it is really not like the typical acquisition system, but it is a procurement that can end in a prototype contract, and then to prototype that and to grow it out if it bears merit. So here's a little bit about the difference between these other transactional authorities and our commercial solutions opening. So on the left, we've got the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which is quite familiar to everyone here, I'm sure. A rather onerous process that can include RFQ, RFP, RFI, republishing, updating, posted to the online. It can take up to 18 months. I mean, I suppose that's even somewhat optimistic in the case of space systems. They can be protested if the awards are done improperly, and that happens frequently. Milestones are often set such that if a small participant wants to play, the payment milestones aren't going to allow their business to be viable over a longer period of time. In other words, if we have a 10-person startup that's got a superior artificial intelligence algorithm that we want to bring to the fight, we might have to generate a payment schedule that's going to keep that business viable and keep that entrepreneur having an ability to pay his mortgage. And then, of course, the DCAA accounting standards, these are not applicable. And we can set intellectual property rights. We can establish them in whatever means is necessary. So a specifically contracted to and negotiated intellectual property participation. Then the CSOs, it's simpler. We post requirements to the DIUx.mil. If you go there, you'll see a couple. You can sign up for an RSA feed to get a push of those. 60 to 90 days is our aspiration. Sometimes we're as little as 30 days from the time we meet a company and take them through a pitch scenario in a Shark Tank-like environment in our office in Mountain View to the time that they're under award. Done properly, these awards are unprotestable. We can negotiate payment milestones, as I mentioned, and terms and intellectual property rights that are going to work for your tech startups. And if it works well and goes to production, this can be a sole source justification for later purchasing at volume. So I did want to be sure that to convey, and I'm realizing this more and more frequently, that the defense industrial base has incredible innovation capabilities and resources, frankly. So this really needs to be, I think, a joint effort. And OTAs and CSOs are not to block those traditional defense participants, but it's instead an opportunity for them to bring other smaller firms to market and to use their financial prowess. There is a cost share model that's required in the other transactional authorities that traditional defense contractors must enter into, a 1/3 cost share. And with that, I would like to take your questions.
Thank you, Colonel. We have a few questions. One is, since many folks are not necessarily as familiar as you are with OTAs, based on the slide on the FAR versus CISO, so the CISO solution looks ideal. How did you get the lawyers to agree?
Well, the other transactional authorities are nothing new. Actually, NASA used them in the late 50s during the space race. Commercial Solutions Opening is a variant of that. NGA actually has access to many OTAs. And so the CSOs, really, it's in law. National Defense Authorization Act of 16 established this ability to tap into the OTAs and the CSOs in a more permissive manner. And what we're seeing is in NDAA 17 and now in 18, that's actually expanding in terms of the maximum size of the contract. And the Congress is recognizing that there still are defense industrial base participants that need to participate. And
additionally, in OTAs, the contractor in an OTA is directed to work and write the requirements with the government, which is not allowed, obviously, under the FAR, but that's another great advantage of OTAs. Another question, sir. When will the 2018 challenge data set be made available?
That's addressed to General Robinson, so I don't know if somebody here knows something.
I gave you,
I don't.
Are you a brevet?
We can move this right into a promotion ceremony if you'd like. So, the data set is available, and I can make available. There is a website that you can sign up for it now, so that is accessible now.
Okay, so obviously the audience saw the brilliance, so that's good. So 60 people, 4 locations for the DIUx community. Question is, are you spread too thin? Or do you have a startup company culture? If so, what's that like, given you're part of the DoD?
I feel like we are spread too thin, and with a 60-person organization, you kind of have to come to terms with what you can conceivably do. These CSOs are quite unique, and there's a certain value. There's obviously a value to them. There's also a significant learning curve. But again, with our work with NGA, we're looking for those that have the ability to help scale it, help learn it with us, and apply it to the GEOINT discipline. So a lot of what we're doing, we're calling scaling DIUx. Small organization, but if we can teach other organizations to fish, so a lot of what we're doing with the outposts of NGA out in Silicon Valley and potentially in Austin and in Boston is talking about how we can go to market together on commercial solutions openings and other OTAs.
Question, does DIUx ever feel pressured by big traditional suppliers to back off using small companies or startups?
Absolutely. The bottom line is that this could potentially perturb a very tried and true, long-standing procurement and acquisition apparatus that we have really grown a culture around. So on the edges of that might be some fear that the business cases of old are on some shaky ground. And I, for one, think that that's just fine. And in fact, I know that that's why the Congress has put that in the Appropriation Acts, because it wants to stimulate that kind of innovation. The fact is, we are being outpaced in a technical realm by our near peer and peer adversaries, flat out. And if we don't find another way to bring innovation that takes place in this country largely to our own department, then we're going to get outstripped and we're going to get beat.
Thank you. So who picks the OTA winner? The organization that submitted the problem or DIUx?
We really look at it's a customer model, so it's a supported customer. In the case of U.S. Transportation Command or any of the others, the customer largely, we're kind of brokering the arrangement, and Army Contracting Command in Picatinny, New Jersey is the one executing on that, so that is the acquisition realm. So we're involved for legal purposes, but we really put it to the customer. I mean, they're the ones that have to live with the end result. Now that said, our objective is to be able to scale a successful prototype across the department. And so it's not just that individual customer, but others potentially that can be the benefactors of that.
Are there posted for industry a list of needs that need resolution by DIUx, things you're looking for?
Yes, actually our website is really quite fantastic. DIUx.mil. We'll post our commercial solutions openings there. If there is a need statement that's not made its way there yet, there is a format that anybody can push a solution forward to, and as soon as there is a commercial solutions opening that's published, we'll look back in that archive for those that have provided us with information or contact information.
Okay. Question is, there are technologies not in Silicon Valley, Boston, Austin, D.C. that can innovate. What is DIUx doing to find these technologies?
Absolutely. I mean, those three city areas by no means have a lock on innovation, and in fact, I've been exposed to a lot of the technology innovation happening right in D.C., and it's from very small startups a la Silicon Valley. Washington State is another good example of that, Front Range of Colorado. So we're tapping into all, and we're simply geographically located in those places so that we can have personal interaction when the right time comes. But we would like to see all 50 states having representation of contracts that we have done. I think we're at 44 at this point.
So when DIUx first started out, you were directly under the SecDef. Organization has changed as you've grown. Can you talk a little about the organization, your civilian director, the military side, how that all comes together?
Right. So yeah, Ash Carter set us up about 2.5 years ago. DIUx 1.0, we kind of reinvented ourselves about a year in, because we realized that this innovation and truly breaking glass and these other transactional authorities is difficult. So we reset. When Secretary Mattis came on board, we all breathed a sigh of relief that he was equally supportive of what we were trying to do and understood the urgencies around that. Just recently, we have moved from the DepSecDef to the USD Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Dr. Griffin, who is actually a much more efficient place, I think, for us to be. So we're with DARPA and SCO and MDA, as I mentioned. And so we really find that if you're not kind of the one reporting directly to SecDep, the Secretary of Defense, that you have less people trying to kind of sharpshoot you. So it's a tighter family. We've got tighter cooperation with those lateral agencies that actually have technology complement to us.
Are there any other questions from the audience? We have about 5 minutes. What's the budget cap on OTAs is the question.
So an initial OTA's budget was just increased from 250 to 500 million. Now, that actually can be scaled up after the prototype period is completed to, I don't believe that there is any cap on that. We've seen some as high as almost $1 billion.
That's great. Are they all prototype or some development?
They're all prototype. That's really what we're looking at. If again, we need to bring a commercial capability that's proven out. We don't really want to experiment with something. If it's done and it's in a viable commercial sector, and the R&D that has occurred, we can get access to that quickly. That's what we're looking for. Others do the other side of that equation.
Question is, what are you doing to procure commercial SAR imagery?
Nothing. That's one of those that I'm really gratified as a kind of a GEOINT person myself. That's the purview of NGA, and you heard Scott Curry here talk a little bit about that. I mean, we can help in certain ways, but especially when you're dealing with SAR, that's a subject matter and a domain expertise that's beyond us. So that's a perfect opportunity to engage with the NGA.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the question was, have we had success in getting non-traditional companies to work with the government? Absolutely, that is our success, and we do that by meeting them where they are, in Silicon Valley, and to use that venture capital network not only to do tech scouting, but to get the word out, so that if we're looking for an artificial intelligence computer vision algorithm that can work on high-resolution satellite imagery, but the inventor of it doesn't know that he's got a legitimate market opportunity with a DoD. It's a messaging thing. So we work that significantly. That's exactly what we would seek to achieve is relationships and encouraging those non-traditionals. Money. I'm kidding.
The question was, that was your side of it from the government. Why do those companies want to work with you?
So yeah, I mean, our awards are small. You know, $250,000, $1 million, a couple $1 million. It's not really the amount, but the dynamic that we've seen happen time and time again is that when the DoD awards a contract to a non-traditional, the venture capital community takes notice. So they may see a $1 million award, but they may see a 50x multiplier on that in terms of seed capital that they may be in for. That's why.
So I work for Oracle, and I visited the Mountain View facilities. Even though we're a large company, I encourage all size companies to talk to these folks because they're doing some really great stuff, and they need to hear thoughts from both large, small, and middle-sized companies, and let them go do their trying to find the right innovation. Any last thoughts, sir?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here for the Colonel here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.